各位观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看 J 与 J 论坛，由我 Jimmy 妈马健，有我们的好朋友 Jim 乐伟一起来我们讨论这个礼拜的时事。Jim, how are you?
Hi, Jimmy. I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Every week there's something new.
Well,
Life is moving very fast, and change is very volatile.
Do you think? Did you watch the President Biden's speech yesterday?
Oh yes. And I watched Tim Scott's rebuttal as well.
Okay, I did not get to see that. So you want to give our audience a quick take on what are the issues that concerns you the most?
Sure. My overall reaction was that I'm sure Mr. Biden and his team thought everything went beautifully well last night. He spoke well, but my reaction of it was mostly theater. It was of the media, by the media, and for the media. And the media, I believe, are the Triple B Club, the big Biden boosters. And what I concluded about that speech was, in the real estate world, we call this kind of a presentation cotton candy, because it's all sweet, but it's nothing but air. And the content of the speech was, we are changing America, and we are doing it by spending big and taxing big. And when you looked at the House of Representatives room where they were COVID petrified. They were so afraid of everything, they only had 200 people there. And that's part of the theater, because Mr. Biden's objective was to be a calming influence on everybody, try to reduce the controversy, try to reduce the rhetoric, and try to build confidence by saying, we as the government are going to take care of you. But the subtle message was fear. We're still afraid of COVID. We have vaccinated a lot of people, but we cannot even let congressmen in there, even though they've all been vaccinated. And everybody there was sitting so far apart. They only had 200 people in a room that seats well more than 1,000. And everybody was wearing masks. Thankfully, Mr. Biden wasn't. Most of the time when he's standing at a podium, he wears a mask too, all by himself. And then 12 or 15 feet behind him is Kamala Harris wearing a mask, long distance away. And the masks have become a sign of obedience. And I'm saying to myself, why have the vaccine if everybody else that has the vaccine, you don't get it from anybody and you don't give it to anybody? So everybody should be there. And if you doubt it, then why keep touting the effectiveness of the vaccine? So having said all of that, almost all the speech was, here's all the money I'm going to spend for you. And just give one example. He talked a lot about education, childcare, etc. He talked about quantity. Here we're going to spend a lot more money on education, and we're going to go from 12 years of education to 14, 2 years preschool and 2 years of community college, most of which is already free. And we as the government are going to take over daycare, so we're going to help raise your children for you. Most of the women that I know, they want to spend more time with their own children. So what he didn't talk about was quality. What's the quality of this education? We have been screwing ourselves in our education system for a very long time, and he hasn't been talking about it. We've turned everything over to teachers' unions, which are delighted to have the pandemic where they don't have to work and go to school. Two is educational standards have been dropping like a rock. Nobody's really talking about increasing the quality of education anymore. And I could go on and on and on. So what really happened here? And you mentioned in your opening question, if I wanted to talk about what he said, I'd like to talk about what he didn't say. There were three huge issues that he didn't talk about, didn't mention. Number one, international relations. He didn't talk about dealing with China. He did mention that he spoke with Xi Jinping. He didn't talk about China's pollution. He didn't talk about China's adventurism. He didn't talk about any of that. He didn't talk about Iran, all the speedboats getting in the Persian Gulf, tying up international traffic, and the warning shots that our Navy had to shoot at them, because our goal is to keep it open for international commerce. He didn't talk anything about John Kerry giving away secrets from Israeli intelligence. He didn't talk about Israel at all. So our international relations are just left open. He said he did talk to Xi Jinping, but he gave us no confidence that he's doing anything to contain any threat from China. The second thing he didn't talk about was inflation. He didn't talk about what a disaster his economic policies are, spending a whole lot of money that we all have to borrow. And yes, he says that the spending is over 5 to 10 years, 8 to 10 years, pardon me. But even on his most aggressive tax plans, it will take us at least 15 years to earn that money back. So we're spending a huge amount of money that we don't have, and we're borrowing it. And already we have a full throttle fiscal policy, and we have a full throttle monetary policy. And inflation has already started. Just look at housing prices, just look at energy prices, just look at food prices. I have a lot of statistics that show that inflation is far worse than it's being measured in the producer price index, the consumer price index, or in the basket of goods. We can go on and on and on. It's already happened, and those of us who have lived through this know just how it feels. And the third thing he didn't say anything about is immigration. He didn't talk about the open border, the calamity that has occurred. Do you know that we have had, in the first quarter, Jimmy, we have had more illegal immigration in 3 months of this year than we had in the entire year last year?
I didn't know that. I will fact check that and I will get back to you. I did not know that.
Okay. And it's not for humanitarian reasons. The people who come here are being treated horribly. And the American people who are hosting all of these folks are taking huge COVID risks. Because people are coming in without testing. They're being all put together. They're being distributed all over the country. They don't have to, the new immigrants, illegal, undocumented, whatever polite word you want to use, are being treated better than American citizens.
Jim, even the legal immigrants, even visitors, as I was in Colorado and I met people from all over the world, they were astonished at the United States policy of letting anyone in. There's no tracking, there's no contact tracing. They don't require a test. They were astonished. They're from Brazil, Argentina. They're like, are you serious? Are you guys, United States is like this?
There's nothing. And so this is a very, very serious problem. And he didn't mention, back to, border security, homeland security, all of the risks that we're taking up and down, let alone the economic risks that we're taking here. It's very difficult. And then another thing he didn't mention was what is on the number one issue on everybody's mind: significantly rising crime. Murders are up across the country by at least 30%. carjackings and rapes are up. All violent crime is up. And nobody's talking about it. We're sweeping it under the rug. And when people say defund the police, the media claps and says, yes, do that. They're talking about removing qualified immunity from police officers. Terrible idea. You're never going to get new policemen if they're not legally protected. We are going down some very, very dangerous pathways right now. And my hope is that, and Biden, I give him credit. I give him credit for thinking big. He does say that. Act big, think big, go big, whatever his slogan is. I give him that, and he's trying to outrun his 2-year risk. And by that, I mean, he runs a huge risk that the Republicans retake the House and probably retake the Senate in the 2022 elections, which will stop virtually everything he wants to accomplish. My hope is that he continues to behave this way, overreaches, and creates a significant backlash that then allows the political shift in both houses of Congress to balance this all back out. But right now, it is intentional. They use the word chaos. I call it intentional chaos. I give him credit for moving quickly, and I give him credit for having the media be his big booster. But what I don't give credit for is very many people pushing back on all of this. You've been very patient to listen to me, but obviously I feel quite strongly about what was said last night and what wasn't said. And to me, the hero of last night was Tim Scott. Tim Scott said a lot of things about his personal journey from cotton to Congress in one generation. And he also said, America is not a racist country. And there are lots and lots of statistics that prove that as well. But he challenged the Biden doctrine, the critical race theory, all of that. And he did it from a perspective as a Black member of the U.S. Senate. Very, very interesting times. Partisan allegiances are beginning to shift. So at any rate, you've been patient to listen to me. I've given you a mouthful.
No, I am very glad that you have reacted this strongly, because in the last almost a year, we've been having this discussion. It's, we usually talk about issues, but it's very, very hard it's also very concerning to me to see how pessimistic and how worried you are about our country. Someone that is very experienced, someone that do know what matters. There's a lot of talking heads on TV, a lot of media personalities. I don't know what field, what line of work they come from, but I know that both of us have real life experience working in whether it's corporate or public sector or private sector. When we see a problem, we can identify and we know. And maybe our solution is not perfect, but at least we can talk about it. So for you to, look, you pointed out a lot of things that I don't know if those numbers are true. And definitely some of them, I have the same concern for sure. Some of them I disagree with how we think should be executed. Doesn't mean the problem is not there. Now, I could go one by one, but that's not what we're not here about that, because I don't look at issues by party line. I don't belong to a certain party. Neither do you, I would hope. We go issue by issue. Now, Tim Scott, first of all, the media narrative is true. The media is clapping hands, and everything you brought up, we could do a 1-hour show on each one. Yeah. We really can, because we talk about defunding the police. We really never got in depth. The defunding police, what it means to you and what it means to me is actually very different. I have kids too. And with my education level income, I pay a lot of taxes to have police. I want that because you yell defund the police and people, the crying wolf, right? The time when you're being robbed or a crime is being committed against you and the police doesn't show up, then you'll regret it. It doesn't work that way because I've been on both sides. Yeah, I want the law. I want law and order, but I also have been the recipient of systematic racism. Now, could I really say it's racism, or maybe it's ignorance, maybe it's prejudice? But every person is prejudiced and have their own misconceptions built in already. Now, in the 70s, 80s, a certain generation of older Americans use certain words that could be hurtful, but that's what they grew up hearing. They think it's okay. I mean, when I was in high school, I was waiting in a medical office. Anyways, an older lady, Caucasian lady, asked me, hey, colored boy, where are your parents from? I didn't really care at that time. I didn't think it was insulting. But if I'd had an African-American friend, because for her age, she's old, that she grew up used to saying that. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean, I'm not sitting here. I don't know. So when you talk about so we go back to defund the police and racism. Tim Scott has no idea what he's talking about. There's a difference between racist country and systematic racism. They're two very different things. There are going to be a lot of Asians and Mexican Americans and African Americans will come out. There's some few that come out and say that based on their belief. For him, he doesn't experience it. I'm not going to pretend that I know what African Americans, what they're going through, because I'm not. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to do cultural appropriation and pretend that, I know. No, I'm not going to do that. What makes America great is the ability to accept, the ability to have compassion and empathy. And everything that President Biden has said has provided for that. Now, what I'm worried about is basically he has rejected the trickle-down economy, which is rejecting Reaganomics. Because the numbers, when we talk about numbers on Wall Street, we look at numbers. Trickle-down economy has not worked, period. 40 years it did not. It's a myth built by Republicans. Because when you lower the tax rate from 70% in the 80s to 50%, the top tax rate, where's that 20% shortfall going to come from? At that time, his advisors, this is public record, that it will come from budget cuts. Well, neither Republican or Democratic presidents have any success in cutting any budget. So we're in a deficit. And you know what my concern is? You're right about all of this, the crime, the education, how far behind, because we're international, connected with the international community, right? Mm-hmm. So Jim, I have friends all over the world. Before they want to send their kids here, now they don't. Now nobody needs to get an education here because we're far behind education, crime, this gun problem. To me, the biggest problem is where's the gun control? Every day people are mass shooting. Do we really, are we run by lobbyists now? The NRA has that much power or are we this ignorant that our Second Amendment rights, life, liberty, or death, and the fact that 200 years ago we had a militia, we had the right to bear arms then, but now why do we not talk about that? And you talk about immigration. Let's go back to the funding first. The funding means different things to me. There's no way I want the police to be completely disbanded. The way they say defund is they want to cut their budget, defund militarized weapons. Why do they need a tank? That's a result of Reagan's wrong policy of the war on drugs. Did it get better? The numbers it's facts, is worse than ever. War on drugs doesn't work. So all this funding that goes to buy military weapons, training them to be SWAT, doesn't work. Defunding and reroute the funds to mental health experts, to social workers, to talk it down. And guess what? When things happen, when a criminal kills an officer, do we sit there and say, oh, look, this is what happens with defunding? Of course, I don't want officers to be murdered. But the fact is there is bad seeds in, they're bad apples. And this what you said is a catch-22. nobody want to be cops because they don't want to be sued liable. Well, then maybe they would follow their training. Maybe they will not be so trigger happy because a human life is invaluable. This is your job. You're paid to do this job.
Well, there are solutions to some of these things, okay? That number one is reduction in the influence that unions have, public sector unions have, in protecting their members. Okay? You can have police accountability organizations, boards, etc., to independently investigate issues and behavior. Even in the city of Houston, our mayor has rejected those. Okay? And there's a dirty little secret. No mayor and no police chief or fire chief, for that matter, manages their organizations. All across the United States, they are managed by union work rules. Okay? I think when you elect a mayor, you are electing a chief executive to implement policy and decisions and make balancing judgments on all of these things.
Are you saying the left wants to have their cake and eat it too? They want to have accountability, they want to be fun, but yet they want the unions around. But you cannot have both. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, you cannot have both. Same thing when it comes to education and the teachers' unions. Right?
But the unions are what the rank and file police and firefighters fight for, to protect their pension, to fight for their best interests. I'm not saying unions are necessary or not in certain industries.
I'm not faulting the individual policemen at all. Mm-hmm. I'm not faulting the union organizers and leaders. They are striving for what benefits them. You expect them to do this.
This should be, yeah, that's their duty.
Where I'm placing the blame is our weak leadership that lets this happen and lets things get out of balance so that we no longer have citizen control over what's happening.
This is very interesting.
We have given this up. Why? Because it's easier. Because we kick the can down the road and we don't bother with making the hard decision.
Because the hard decision will attract media attention that somebody will oppose or support. And then in turn, you lose votes. You know, this has become a popularity contest to basically put up this front for votes, to appeal and appease majority of the people. Jim, if you were mayor, if you became the mayor of the city of Houston, you're telling me that I don't believe that a mayor would destroy their own political career, because you don't mess with the police. I mean, everybody in politics knows you don't mess with the police and firefighter unions. You don't mess with union, period, because history has not been kind to political figures that are trying to change, to upset or change the current status. So if you're a mayor, how do you achieve both? By taking away some of the union's powers and giving and holding them more rank and file more accountable for their actions. Because what you said is interesting. There's a big case.
Here's the way you do it. Is you back the good policemen. Okay. And you hold the bad ones accountable. For instance, we have had no independent investigation in Houston on the busted drug raid.
That was so ugly.
Our officers, think about the simple facts. Our 6 or 7 officers broke down a door, shot 2 occupants in the house, killed them both within a few seconds.
And their dog.
And their dogs. And there were 40 bullets in the policemen. So thankfully, none of them were fatal. But 2 people that were unarmed that got shot in the house couldn't shoot 40 times before they were killed. Who shot the police?
Themselves.
Yeah. I told my son about this, who's a military expert, and within 3 seconds, he came to that conclusion. Now, we have not had a public airing of the evidence. We've had suppression of the evidence. We can go on for a litany of things. The average policeman that wants to do a good job wants this stuff to come out. Because the other thing that's happened is now the families of those 2 people who were killed have gone to court, and they have actually found one of the guys to be a bad actor. He's the guy that lied on the arrest warrant. Okay? So what did they do now? They have gotten judges to go and find where this cop, his name is Goins, testified against other criminals. And they have reversed their convictions. Now, I don't know whether those guys were guilty or not.
Hundreds or thousands of convictions.
And the bad guys are getting let out, okay? Because their whole conviction was tainted, okay? In other words, this cancer grows and grows. We have to stop it, okay? We have to take control of these things. And it's everywhere. And I don't mean to just be picking on the police.
No, you're not.
Why in Houston Metro we have empty buses and empty trains going around all the time? We are spending fortunes on building tracks, building lines, and running empty vehicles. Why? Because the architects, engineers, and contractors think it's a good idea. Okay? Not the transporting public. We could give every occupant that goes on one of our trains, we could give them a lifetime pass on Uber for less than it costs to run the operations.
Lifetime pass on Uber. I love that.
Let's think about what we're doing. Now, why don't we do that? And the answer is, to come back to the question you posed about 5 minutes ago, because an elected official doesn't want to tangle with the public unions. But then I asked the question the other way, Jimmy. Why would I be interested in running to be mayor if I couldn't improve the situation? Why? Because I'm afraid I'd get voted out? Okay, well then the public will seal their own fate. If I try to correct a situation and the public overrules me by voting me out, then they can have what they deserve. But my responsibility as a leader is to inform them of the reality and to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth consistently. But our leaders don't do that. They hide behind, they obfuscate things. That's why I was so strong in my reaction to your question about Mr. Biden. There's intentional deception that is going on continuously at all levels of government. And just to show you that I'm an equal opportunity critic, I will say the same thing about the freeze that we had in February and Mr. Abbott, our governor's culpability there. He appointed the Public Utilities Commission, which appointed the board of ERCOT, which appointed the executives of ERCOT that had regulatory authority over. And once the thing hit, they went that away. No one accepted responsibility. And it's all degenerating into the litigation system in the court system to try to figure it out after the fact. And the legislature isn't doing much good to fix this, and it's all Republican controlled. So There's blame on all sides, Jimmy.
You cannot have absolute power. Like you cannot have one side. You cannot have Republican control everything, or Democrat control. That's why this country's great, because we need someone like you to balance, whether it's federal level or local level.
We need balance. But what we really
hold each other accountable. That's the key. We need to hold the other side accountable.
What I used to say, and I ran for Congress, I used to say 3 planks. Number one, we need to align our interests. Our elective representatives, our elected leaders need to have the interest of the public they represent in mind. Number two, we have to lead by example because everybody watches. And number three, we have to hold ourselves and we have to hold others accountable for results. And that means doing the hard things. You have children, I have children. The easiest thing to do is when a kid cries, give him candy, give him or her candy, tell them they're doing a good job. It's very difficult to mete out punishment. And Nancy Reagan used to call this tough love, okay? It's very difficult to do the things, but it has to be done consistently. You have to lead by example. Studies show, why do some children become drunks at an early age? Why do you think that happens? Guess what? The parents drink a lot in home or in public, okay? You want to set an example for your child? Behave well.
We make hard decisions every day because of our children. I would love to smoke a cigar and drink a glass of scotch right now, walk around in my underwear if I, and not do the right thing and not go to church and sleep in. But we're doing this because it's hard. But in the long run, it'll be better. And if we're elected officials, Jim, I feel bad to tell you this, but you are not. There's a reason why the people that are in elected offices are who they are, and you are having so much success in the private sector, because you're not going to last that long playing this popularity contest by speaking the truth, because you have conviction. I do this show with you, Jim, because you're a good guy, but you're genuine, but you're not afraid to hide you're not slick. A lot of the politicians, they become jaded, they become slick, they become snake oil charmers. You know what I mean? They get so, and they always answer, well, we've been around. We could read that. I could feel that immediately as a turnoff. And so many are like that. And you've been, how do I say, you haven't been corrupted. How about that? I don't know if that's a compliment, but you're not corrupted. You're not corruptible. And the fact is, there's no need to corrupt you because you already have success. You have great family. You know what I mean? You're not trying to get to another position. But no, most elected officials do not think this way. Most elected officials do not, they have their own selfish purpose. With you, that's why I said it's a shame. Your concerns are legitimate. Whether I agree with you or not, it doesn't mean they're not legitimate. Those are real problems. But the things I see and you see are a little bit different, because my concerns is, the tax rate and how we're going to get out and how we're going to be competitive. But if you look at what our concerns are, it's the same. It starts from making the hard decisions, from crime to gun control to education to immigration. These are not, there's always going to be half of the people that will not agree with you. Right. But the people, they might not be as educated, or they might not know the consequences of what they're wanting. And by then it's too late. Our show talked about it for the past few months. Yeah. We're on a slippery slope for the past 40 years. We're at our strongest after World War II up until the 80s. Mm-hmm. And it is, this mass shootings, Jim, I keep wanting to talk about mass shootings, bring it up. Every day. Today, there's another one. 2 officers shot and died. I don't even forgot what state, maybe Virginia or Carolina. I can't even remember. This today, every day we see this. And then I remember when I was in middle school, elementary, do we have to do drills? Because my kids have to do drills now for mass shooting. Could you believe that? Mm-hmm. That makes me sad. I didn't have to do that. Did you? No. Because we didn't have, back then, we had the same laws. We all could still own the same weapons. We could have, how come there was no mass shootings then?
Well, there's an interesting irony. It's not clear to me that we have more mass shootings now than we used to.
We do. These are data. This is data. This is facts.
And maybe so, but it's that they get publicity much more.
No, we just have a lot more.
Yeah.
You know what it is? The publicity makes more of it.
Yeah.
Copycat. You're right. Did you know we had a period for the last before the Atlanta shooting? We didn't have the numbers were very low. I saw a report, but since Atlanta shootings came out within the last 2 months, it was nonstop because it is monkey see, monkey do, and the social media and media kept publicizing.
And when you look at the people who are doing them, these are people who are mentally unstable anyway. By and large, they're mentally unstable anyway. And somebody who's a loser in life, I'm not saying that they have created other problems in the past so that they trigger an alert in the law enforcement, but they just say to themselves, I want to go out in a blaze of glory. I want to be remembered for something, even if it's bad. And that kind of behavior is consistent all across many of these, maybe not all, but many of them.
Much agreed. But like I said, I look at the countries that have very strict gun control, and I see their crime rate. I see their mass shooting. It is compared to us. It works. And what is it in the Northern European countries? Is it Finland or the Danes? Finland. They had the mass shooting and they recalled and everyone turned their guns in. And Canada's doing that. I just don't understand why we can't. Look, Jim, we could talk about gun control all well, but I know we don't have a few minutes left. I want to bring this up. Why bring up gun control? Because our audience, our TV station is on Belair, right across Southern News, our studio. It's a Hong Kong mall. Okay, inside there's a very popular restaurant called Shabu Zone. I'm just bringing that. So Shabu Zone is a hot pot place. Anyways, last night in a packed house, 200-300 diners in there. A 16-year-old boy went to the bathroom, got back, pulled a gun, and shot his father in the head and killed him in front of everyone. This is somewhere I frequent. It's very close to home. Now he's 16 years old. You know what? He murdered. Both lives are ruined. The father, but we don't know what happened. Maybe the father's abusing. We cannot assume. Maybe the father did something, or maybe not. But either way, without guns, this he cannot kill. He can get a fight. He can stab him, but you can't really die from a knife fight. But shooting in the head, you're dead. Without a gun, this will not happen. This hurts me a lot because I go there. It hits home, close to home. Mm-hmm. That's why I brought this up, Jim. It's just very hard. But Jim, very quickly, I want to ask you. May 1st is voting for Fort Bend County for our local city council and school board elections.
Oh, okay.
I guess for Harris County is not this month, not this year.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I don't think
it's not. So a lot of people forget that local elections actually matter just as much or maybe even more than our president election.
They do.
So I want to do a public service. We don't have to do, but I want to remind our audiences that are here in Fort Bend County. You missed early voting already. You haven't voted, which I encourage people to do early voting. You can vote anywhere. It's easier. Mm-hmm. But now this Saturday, May 1st, for Fort Bend County is voting election day. Your city council and your Fort Bend ISD board member, okay, please go vote. I mean, because most people voted in the presidential election last year. So that means you're registered and you'll still be eligible. Mm-hmm. Please go vote. It really does matter. Very quickly, you can find information. Or you know what? If you don't know, at least just vote. Just go in there and vote and see whoever you like. I personally would recommend the two, for Fort Bend ISD at least, because my kids are, the two candidates that have been Fort Settlement Middle School that have been volunteers for a long time. So for position number 2 is Judy Day and Allison Drew. Do I know them? No. Am I campaigning for them? No. I am not supposed to tell you who I voted for. But those are the two that we vetted, that we know has been part of the community, that put in the work. They didn't just win the lotto and decide they want some fame. They didn't just come in from a corporate job and say, you know what, I want to get a springboard. No, these people are here to do the work because they've been doing the work. And Judy Day is the only one that's endorsed by the majority of the current board. And anyways, if you guys go vote, please do your part, do your duty and vote on May 1st, because a lot of our Asian folks don't vote. It takes 5 minutes. This is not a federal election. There's no line. Literally, you walk in, show your ID, boom, boom, boom. You're walk out in 5 minutes. So, Jim, sorry, I had to do this because it's very hard to get this out of them.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. With that, I endorse what you said about asking everybody to vote, and I'll see you next week, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jim. Take care.
Okay. Take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.